All right, welcome today to Passive Prospecting, YouTube for real estate agents. And we got a special guest on with us today, Mr. Jake Gomes from Keller Williams. And he's going to be talking about investment strategies. And this is something that, I absolutely love. I think as a real estate agent, the last thing you want to do is get caught up in being a transactional real estate agent for the rest of your life, meaning just helping other people with their transactions versus helping yourself with your own transactions. So I think that's very important to keep in mind and start thinking about how can you acquire assets on your journey as you move through your real estate career. And that way you actually can retire at some point, because the old joke is, right, real estate agents never get to retire. So I'm going to bring up the man of the hour, Mr. Jake Gomes. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Levi. How are you, man?
Good. So let's get started off. You came to us through Marist. So you know Marist, right?
Yeah. So her and Andrew are some of my best friends here in Nashville.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We connected a few years ago, even before I was active in real estate in a deep level as an agent. Just ran into him at a bar and became friends from there. And then the universe brought us together in a business setting. And then we just became super good friends from there.
Oh, how fitting to meet Marist at a bar. No, that was I know. I think she's on the sober kick recently. So that's good. Now that's kind of how you got started though too, right? Didn't you start working or managing a bar? Were you working there at the time, or did you just meet them at the bar, or was this something you were running? Because I believe you were. This is where you kind of got your foot in the door, is managing a bar, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it started back when I was in my early 20s. When I got out of college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and become rich was what I wanted to do.
Great goal. There you go. Yep. That was it. Just rich, right? There's no other reason behind that. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Rich. And then I learned what rich meant. And I was like, well, wealthy is probably a better definition of what I want. So, yeah, I realized that my college degree was completely unconducive to becoming rich. It was a public health degree. So I knew that was not the path to riches. So I knew that business was. And so I was trying to figure things out. I was 23 years old, living in San Diego, just having a good time living the life. And I was working in a bar, and I got the opportunity to manage. And I realized that this was an opportunity where I could learn how a business runs. I could learn sales. I could learn marketing. I could learn leadership. I could learn all these aspects to it. And then when it came time to be in business for myself, whatever that would entail, I would actually have the skills to capitalize on that. So I was in the bar industry for about 7 years, traveled all around the country, opened up locations, ran locations, and did all that.
Okay, cool. So, what'd you learn from that experience?
I learned how difficult leadership was.
Yeah. Managing a bunch of people that drink in between serving other people drinks.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and leadership itself is just, it's a difficult thing to do at a high level, because we have managers, but we have leaders, and you don't have to be a manager to be a leader, but to be a good manager, you have to be a good leader. And good leaders usually end up being managers, being, the ones calling the shots and making the decisions. I learned what it takes to actually bust your butt for the first time, because I had never worked that hard in my life. I never understood how much is on the line. It's really interesting is, those people count on you. The decisions that you make as a leader affect people's paychecks and their jobs. As we all know, that's how you fund your hopes and dreams for life. So it's a massive responsibility, and the one that needs to be taken very, very seriously.
Now, what was the shift for you in mindset there? Because I don't know. I don't know a lot of bar owners or bar managers, but most of the time they're from what I know, I guess would say, or maybe assume, again, I don't really know them, but assume that they're not really concerned about leadership. It's more like, hey, just show up, do your job, serve, and, we'll have some shots here or there and do that. So what was it that made you really what incentivized you or made you really want to dig into that and be a better leader for that team?
Yeah. So the part of my college degree that I was actually very applicable to what I was doing was it was a public health degree, but I had a specialty in employee health. So I had internships with OSHA. I focused on the employee business side of everything. So I instinctually in my heart cared to some degree. And, it's interesting in a setting like that because the money that your crew makes is so immediate that your decisions have a very, very immediate impact. It's not as if at the end of the quarter, we're going to look at the financials and then maybe you'll get a bonus, maybe you won't. It's day to day, shift to shift, and those things compound and matter over time. So, and I also found out that those in the service industry tend not to save money very, very well.
Imagine that.
Yeah, because it's quick, right? Oh, I can spend all my money on Wednesday. I have a shift tomorrow. I'm going to make another $300, right? That's oftentimes what the mindset is. So it's a big responsibility. And furthermore, when I got into the role, I was really young. I was 23 years old when I was the bar manager, and I was the youngest person in the bar. I was the least experienced, and I was also the worst bartender. So I knew that I couldn't lead by skill. So I had to figure out the other ways to lead and what leadership actually was. So I realized that I had an uphill battle and that I wasn't experienced. So I just read all the books on leadership I could find. I digested everything from John Maxwell. Love him. And I just put my head down and read a lot and worked and made a ton of mistakes and but just kept going.
There you go. All right. So before we move into the real estate journey, what is there a couple of leadership tips or things that you took away? If you could kind of condense all the books and everything you read, is there a couple of points that really have ingrained in you and that you've used in your real estate career now as well?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I'm just now starting to build up my own team. So I'm coming back to a lot of the leadership skills that I learned running the bars. One of them is that a good company can't save a bad leader, but a good leader can save a bad company. So it's said that people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. And that's very, very true. It's the face or the brand or the leader, or the one that runs a business, the owner, whatever that person is, the head honcho, the one who's making the decisions, people look to them. It doesn't matter what the job is and what the company is if that leader is immaculate to some degree, of course. And what's interesting is this translates into real estate because I think a lot of agents make this mistake thinking that their brokerage matters, and I really don't think it does. You can be with Keller Williams, which I'm with, and I love Keller Williams, or you could be with any other agency. But if you're a great agent and you take care of people and you're honest, you communicate well, you do your job well, people are going to want to work with you. It doesn't matter if you're a little boutique, doesn't matter if you're one of the big guys. They don't care who it's with. It's you that they care about as a leader, but also as an agent, since you are a leader in the process, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same, I think, with clients as well, right? They're not really concerned about a brokerage either. They want to work with who's going to, who they connect with the most or they feel will serve them the most. But yeah, we find that as well. I mean, we attract, a good sized team through, being an EXP as well, but we've never really led with that. We've always led with how can we help somebody in their production first. And so that's what people are always looking for is, can you help me sell a home first? And because the brokerage is not going to help you sell a home at all, really. So the thing is that who you're aligned with or who you're working with or training under or working with on improving your skills to do that, that's what really matters the most. So where did you go from did you go straight from the bar industry to real estate?
Yes. So while I was still in the bar industry, I had started to pick up a few properties.
Mhm.
I grew up in the real estate investing world. When I was 12 years old, my mom bought a duplex. And then a little while later, she bought another duplex, or actually, sorry, triplex for the second one, built up this big portfolio. So when I was in my 20s, I started acquiring assets when I was still doing that, in the bar and restaurant, still running those. And my plan was to have this job for the next 5 to 10 years, pick up an investment property once a year. And then at some point, when the income from the investments is greater than my income from my job, retire, live off of that. So that was the idea. And then COVID happened.
Mm.
And the restaurants, were probably top 3 industries that got kneecapped during that time. I think cruises were probably the most affected. Music was definitely up there, and the bar and restaurant. So I lost my job.
Yeah.
And I, like many people, was trying to figure out what the next step was. What was I going to do? And I took a week and I thought about it, and there wasn't much to do, right? So I thought about it. I said, okay, well, what do I know? And I said, okay, well, I know the bars and restaurants. Well, that's not going to work. I can DJ, but that's not going to work. I also know real estate investing. I was like, okay, maybe I can take the investing thing very seriously, but I don't have any money. And I also didn't have the skills to use other people's money, capitalize, syndicate, anything like that. So I just thought to myself, I'd become an agent, and called my folks, talked to them about it. They said it was a great idea. Talked to the agent that sold me my properties. He said, I think you do a good job at it. So I just said, cool, I'm going to become a real estate agent. So that's what I did. I was in Detroit at the time. I had moved around with this company that I was with for quite a while. I was in Detroit at the time, sort of stranded. So I said, all right, I'm going to move to Nashville. I'm going to get my real estate license right when I get there, and I'm going to hit the ground running, start selling houses. I started doing that, but when I got to Nashville, I got the opportunity to run a bar at the same time. So I thought to myself, this will pay the bills for now, and I will also be able to capitalize and meet a ton of people and be able to get business out of running the bar. And then once the business is busy enough, I'll exit the bar. Boom. That was the plan, and that's what I did. So it was actually at this bar that I was running that I had met Maris and Andrew for the first time.
Okay. Why Nashville?
A couple reasons. I always loved it. I had been here a ton of times. I already had a ton of friends here. I love the city, and I had said at some point I would really like to live in Nashville. So that was one side of it too. But I also understood that money is like water, right? It's never just sitting still. It's not it's always moving, right? Just like water goes into the sky, then rains, and goes into the rivers, that goes into the oceans, comes back, right? And you have to pivot yourself where that money is, and you're going to get wet, essentially. So I understood that Nashville was booming, that there was still a lot of meat on the bone, and that if I was able to get into Nashville and be able to establish a solid business for myself off the bat, that I'd be able to capitalize on a lot of people moving to Nashville, a lot of job growth, and all the opportunities that I knew it would present. So love Nashville. That's where the money's going to. So boom.
Plus, you didn't like the cold winters in Detroit, right?
There are many things I didn't like about Detroit. Not everything though. It's a really cool city, but yeah, when you get moved up there 2 months before a pandemic in the winter, it's not so fun.
Yeah. They're a lot more strict up there than they were in Nashville too, huh?
My goodness. It was insane. Absolutely insane. Interestingly enough, when I decided on Nashville, I was also thinking about San Diego because I previously lived out there. But I understood that a place like Tennessee would bounce back and open up a lot quicker than a place like California. And that in addition to wanting to build a business, I also wanted to have a good lifestyle and be able to live the life that I wanted to live. So Nashville is the clear winner in that regard.
Yep. Okay. So now you're there, you get licensed, and you are working at the bar at the same time. You meet Marist. She's like, "Oh, I do marketing for for a lot of real estate agents." So from there, does it go as planned? Do you start meeting people, and that's where you start to acquire your first clients from the bar?
Yes, it did. My first clients weren't from the bar, but multiple clients were from the bar. So it was a balancing act, right? Because I had to run the bar, and it was opening up a new location too in the middle of a pandemic. So it was a massive endeavor. So it was a balance of doing a good job, because nothing that I do I want to be bad at, right? So I wanted to do a good job, but I couldn't just walk up to every single guest in the restaurant and say, "Hey, I sell a house. Do you need a real estate agent?" So it
Right.
was more of establishing relationships with the regulars, with the crew that would come in, and just getting to know them. Them finding out that I was in real estate. So my first deal I ever did it wasn't from the bar, but it was from a musician that would play in the bars that I would run before, and we just became friends over the years. So my first deal was with him because he had some funds. He wanted to get into real estate investing. I was an investor, and I was branding myself around being an investment agent. We got together multiple times, thought about getting into deals together. Instead, just decided to work from the agent perspective. So my first deal was a two bed for $171,000 in 2021.
Okay. A 2-bedroom. That's a house or a condo or?
Townhome, 2 townhome setup. So they bought on one side. There's the 2 bed. It's a really nice spot. It needed work, but it was a 2 bed, 2 full baths. Both of the bedrooms had their own. Both of the bedrooms each had their own bathroom. So it was a really nice setup. But what's really interesting is this is 2021, and the idea of finding something for $171,000 in Nashville now is absolutely insane.
I was about to say, did you hit it right before everything started going multiple offers and over asking?
Right before it was. And I remember having conversations saying, because they got in there, started doing everything, and it was their first investment, so they're all nervous. I'm like, listen, guys, this is gonna long term, this is gonna be amazing for you. Little did I know how insane everything would get, and now rest assured they're certainly happy with the investment.
So since then, now how many units have you been able to pick up?
Yeah, so that was my first deal in February of 2021. So from when I got my license, it took me 6 months to get that deal, and then it took me another 2 months to get my next deal. So in 2021, I ended up selling 10 deals for just under $4 million in volume. And then in 2022, I sold 24 properties for just under 10 million in volume. And then so far this year, at this time, we're about to close a deal tomorrow, a deal the day after that. So those all included, that's going to be another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 properties for the year.
Wow, on a roll. And now, and how's that? Are you just working these past clients sphere? Is it all still people kind of that you met at the bar? How's this momentum building?
So a couple different areas. I very much subscribe to the you should never be a secret agent idea. You should always be picking up business anywhere you go. And I hold that to a T. If I'm in the coffee shop, if I'm golfing, if I'm at the bar, if I'm walking, I'm constantly talking to people and just bringing up real estate. And I think it's really easy too, because, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, what we do is sexy, right? This is real estate. People love real estate. They love homes. They love the idea of having an absolutely beautiful home. They love talking about it. If you were selling life insurance, who wants to talk about life insurance, right?
Nothing against all the people with that sell life insurance.
Yeah, great business, but that, just walking up to people wherever you are, that's not going to be something they get very excited about. So that's one area where I pick up a lot of business. I'm very active on social media. Great thing about being friends with people who run a marketing agency is you pick up a lot of tips and tricks from them. So I use social media a good bit to stay in front of my database, and I also partnered with Bigger Pockets. So I am one of the featured agents in Nashville. So when you go on to biggerpockets.com and you go to find an investment-friendly agent, I'm one of the 5 agents that pop up.
Very nice. And how does that? How do you get involved in that relationship?
So Many agents would like to work with investors, but don't really know how. So the idea of an investment focused agent is really, really valuable to a lot of people, and Bigger Pockets realizes this. So they had reached out to me one day. This is a couple years back, and I talked to them about the featured agent program and what it would entail. It was obvious that it would make sense. It just financially at the time, I didn't have any money to invest into marketing dollars, so I wasn't able to capitalize on it. But as business continued to grow and I was now in a position where I was able to reinvest in the business, I saw the opportunity there. And my thoughts on the investment side is the return on investment potential is so high, because when you're working with investors, there are so many deals on the table, right? I mean, I understand that you've been an investor and sold your properties in 2019. Was that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you can speak from an investment standpoint, right? You're always looking for the next deal, right? At least once a year, you want to pick up a deal. That's generally how most investors operate. So I understood that investing in the business in that regard, and working with these investors and establishing myself as the Nashville investment property expert, would turn into God knows how much business down the line. So I began working with them at the end of December.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I do like going back to life insurance. I do like talking about life insurance whenever it's used for investing in real estate. So that is a great way to utilize that, which is really one of my primary funding capabilities of real estate. Is I use my own insurance policies to do that, which that's a whole nother topic in itself. But I digress. So, all right. So now you're working with investors, and so what is it? I mean, what are the misconceptions? What people don't want to work with investors because they're trying to get every property at 20 cents on the dollar. They don't think they're serious. They're always looking for the absolute best deal, or is it you're looking at it's just really finding what fits inside their criteria? I mean, what are people concerned about working with investors, and then what's been the upside of that?
Yeah, so I do think many agents would like to work with investors as long as it's at a high level and it's worth their time. I think, yes, many agents are concerned about just submitting lowball offers on 50 different properties and wasting a ton of their time. And that just doesn't sit right with a lot of agents. But the thing is, those investors are picking up deals, and they do need agents many of the times to help them out. So that is something I think holds back a lot of people. But seasoned investors can tell you, when you're sending out these lowball offers, you'll get 49 no's, but you'll get one yes, right? And then maybe the next month you're doing it again. There's a lot of business to be had. One interesting thing is that investors are famously not loyal clients.
Yep.
Right. And that makes sense, right? Because if I'm your agent and we sign an exclusive buyer's rep, but a deal comes from another agent, you're going to be in a tough spot, right? So a lot of agents have a tough time wrapping their head around, okay, you're my client, but you're working with other agents as well. I'm not going to put the time into working with you. That might end up being a waste of time. And, there will be time that you spend that doesn't result in anything. However, I believe that if you establish yourself as a high-level real estate professional to these investors, then they will want to work with you. These investors are generally smart, hardworking, successful to a degree, financially savvy, and the people that they're in business with, they want to be that same way. So they have a high expectation for an agent's knowledge, for an agent's expertise. So I think a lot of agents have a tough time, establishing themselves as a high-level professional in that regard.
Yeah. So do you have a way to vet investors? Just because, sometimes whoever you talk to this day and age is an investor, right? You probably meet a lot of drunk people at the bar too. Oh, I'm an investor, and yeah, I mean, their experience could be extremely minimal. So how do you protect yourself and your time really against the people that are that are serious versus the ones that think because they sold a primary residence and made, $20,000 off of that? What differentiates that person from, the investor that you really do want to put your time and effort into?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And it is very, very important. So one thing is that I tell agents this when I'm teaching them how to work with investors. It's not your job to teach someone to be an investor, right? So sussing out if someone's serious, if someone's not serious, and even if they're not serious, they could be a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, right? It could be a massive leap because, like you said, everyone's an investor or at least wants to be an investor. Now, back when I started, back in when I was 12 years old, we called it landlord. Now it's investor. Sounds a lot better. But one thing is to ask an investor what numbers they look for. That's usually a massive opportunity to see if someone's serious. So when I'm working with an investor, and okay, so what do you look for when you're looking for these deals? What kind of deals make sense to you? What kind of deals don't? And if a client says, "Oh, I'm just looking for a deal," okay, well, what kind of deal? How much return do you have to have? I just need something that makes money. Okay, how much money do you need? Oh, it just needs to make money. Okay, so if I get you something that cash flows 50 cents a month, is that what you're looking for? Well, the answer is probably going to be no, right? Okay, then, what are you looking for, right? So you can ask these questions, and the same question in many, many ways. And if the investor doesn't have the information at hand, they're probably not ready. And that's an opportunity to then say, okay, well, it seems like we have a little bit to learn before we dig into this, because it wouldn't make sense for me to send you potential deals if you don't know what a deal would be that works for you or doesn't work for you. So knowing their numbers is huge. If someone does know their numbers, and they don't have to be exact, right? If they have a general idea, let's say I ask them what sort of return they look at, and they say, well, I'm a cash on cash guy. I really like to get 10% cash on cash. Then it's okay. They know something about real, investing, right? Maybe they've done it before. Maybe they haven't. That's another one as well. How many deals have you done before? They've already bought properties. Okay, great. So just kind of asking those questions in the buyer's consult, understanding, do they know what they're looking at? What resources have they also used is a big one. So I'll ask them, so, okay, great. So which real estate investing books have you read? And if someone hasn't read any, maybe they're not ready, right? But if someone says, oh yeah, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I also read The Richest Man in Babylon, and I love Robert Kiyosaki, and I've read Brandon Turner's books at Bigger Pockets. Okay, great. So even if they haven't bought any properties yet, they've put the work in, right? They know that this is what they want to do, and they're not wasting their time and yours. So those are some good tools to use.
Cool. All right. So what are you looking for right now in your business? Are you just investing locally, or are you have expanded to other areas as long as it's a good deal, or are you just staying in your backyard?
That's a great question. I am staying in my backyard for now. As I said, Nashville, there's still a lot of meat on the bone. There's still a long way to go and a lot of opportunity. I focus pretty heavily in the Airbnb short-term rental space. And I'm really bullish on short-term rentals in Nashville long-term. So my goal is to pick up 2 this year in Nashville. And I'll continue buying in Nashville. I want to pick up at least 1 deal a year. But one thing that I want to do is I want to base my investment portfolio around the lifestyle that I want to live. And the lifestyle that I want to live includes traveling. So once I pick up a few in Nashville, my plan moving forward is to then start picking up deals in cities that I frequent or would like to frequent, using them as short-term rentals and using them, a couple weekends, couple weeks out of the year as my own vacation property. So it was a book that I read, I think it was Tax Strategies. It was by Robert Kiyosaki's CPA, that said, invest where you vacation. And that's what I want to do, to be able to have these investments in these places I go to. Tampa is going to be the first one. I'd like to go have one in San Diego, have one in Boston, have one spread out throughout the country.
Yeah, I tell you what, I need to buy a place in Vegas. There's so much with conferences and meetings and all kinds of stuff. I feel like I'm going to Vegas all the time. So we did talk about that. We're like, we just need to buy a place in Vegas for business in general. I don't vacation there just because I'm always there for a conference. So, but it's same concept, right? If you're traveling somewhere in particular, or have business in another state or area that you travel to quite frequently, a great opportunity to keep an eye on some real estate there and purchase, and use it. So good. Is your mom still active in investing as well?
Slightly active.
Okay.
Yeah, they built up a really solid portfolio, and fortunately, she was able to retire off of the income she was making from real estate.
Is she in Detroit?
Boston.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they sold multiple. They're still holding on to a few. They're picking up a few here. What's interesting is that they're using this. My parents are using the strategy that I mentioned. They're picking up an Airbnb in Nashville because I live here. I have a 2-year-old son. Yep. They want to come spend time, and for them, they love real estate. They love Airbnbs. So they're using the exact strategy that I'm using. Actually, a ton of my clients use, since Nashville's such a big vacation spot.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Vegas, like I said, I mean, there's so many conferences there throughout the year that we end up going there 3, 5, 6 times a year anyways. So something to be able to Airbnb while you're not there. It's a great opportunity. Also, I like overseas. Are you doing any overseas? Because I have some property in other countries as well, which, I like to frequent. So that's something else that I like to take a look at. Are you looking overseas anywhere?
I haven't started digging into overseas. I would like to. I'm really, really interested in Dubai.
All right. It's a long flight, but
it is. I've heard so many good things. I've got some contacts. I spent a lot of time in Dubai, and everyone always speaks so highly of it and how it's the city of the future. I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in Portugal as well, since I'm half Portuguese. So yeah, I like the overseas stuff, but I think we're going to tackle the States first and then go from there.
You speak Portuguese?
I understand it.
Okay. Yeah, I always heard Portugal was a good investment area. I like the Caribbean. I mean, it's close to Dallas. Everything's within a 2, maybe 3-hour flight from Dallas. So that's my ideal spot. But Portugal, I always see the things that you could retire off of $1,100 a month or something like that, And I was always thinking, that would be a cool spot. Plus, I mean, I'm just a sucker for the old wine country anyways. I mean, that's, if you're going to have some wine, you might as well have it from the old country where it's the best. The American stuff, so. But yeah, I love anywhere, Italy, Spain, France. I mean, Portugal. I haven't been to Portugal yet though, but everywhere else, yeah, I would love to have some of those spots around there. But yeah, you turn them into Airbnbs, definitely justifies the payment for that. And that's just something, as having Airbnbs myself, it'd be very difficult for me to go back to a long-term rental unless it was a multifamily or something like that, just because, easily you find the right spot, you can make 2, 3, maybe 4 times the income through Airbnb than you would just on a long-term rental. So it could be very lucrative. And so, yep, actually I'm closing on a new house within a week or 2. And we'll turn the current house into the Airbnb as well. So just to add that into the mix, but I've already projected everything out for that. It's a good area and should get a pretty good return on that. So it's a way to house hack yourself too. Just as I did a video of this on our channel. It's called Dumb Agent, but I called it that for the fact that I just bought this house, closing in a market where their interest rates are 6.25. And it's like, why would an agent buy in this market at these interest rates? Well, because the numbers work. So, it's a math problem to me. Not everybody's going to see that, but hopefully that video sheds a little light for first-time home buyers or the investor novice or somebody that's not really sure. It's like, interest rate really doesn't matter. It's the return on the asset that matters. And, if I do believe that if interest rates come down in 6 months or a year, I mean, or within the next 2 years, I'm not opposed to refinancing in the next 2 years anyways, but anything past that, I'm not really a big fan of doing it. So, but I'm pretty confident within the next 2 years, we can drop rates. If we get down to the 5s or even 4s, that'll be a great time to do it, and no big deal. And I still, acquired a property, really good time, especially as a new construction, when builders are offering big incentives, at least were, 60 days ago. Now it seems like we're starting to get a lot more competition coming back in, multiple offers. The market has definitely shifted just that quickly. It seems very sensitive right now. As soon as rates drop a little bit, activity picks up. And so it seems like all the buyers are there right now. And, the thing is that what I want to encourage everybody with investors is that investors buy in every market, up, down, left, right, sideways, and it could be a really good hedge on your client base to have, a pocket full of investors, because again, they're usually looking at the numbers, they're running the math, and they're not scared of a 6% interest rate if the math works out. So that's something else to keep in mind. If you're only working with first-time home buyers or homeowners or something like that, I mean, yeah, the homeowner with the 3% interest rate right now maybe doesn't want to sell. But guess what? You've got investors looking to buy, sell. They're maybe flipping properties they bought 3 or 4 months ago. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios. They're the ones moving the needle a lot, in these inconsistencies in the market. But you have the right investors, they'll stay pretty consistent. So I think it's a good hedge on your client base.
I agree. And to add on to that, I'm a huge proponent of agents turning their non-investor clients into investors, right? Because every investor at some point was not an investor, right? There had to be something that got them to buy their first property. So I often will educate agents in what those conversations should entail. So for instance, very much like you're doing, right? If someone has a home now and perhaps they have a great interest rate, and you just have that conversation, hey, have you ever thought about getting into real estate investing? I know some people with great interest rates that will buy a new home to live in, maybe an upgrade, and keep their other one as a low interest rate investment property that cash flows really, really well. I actually have a client, this exact thing. He had a 2.7% interest rate on his home, and it was time to upgrade, and he didn't want to sell because he wanted to lock that in. So we found his new home that we closed on, bought that, he moved into it. We found tenants for the other home. He's cash flowing $800 a month off of this investment. And I think there's a lot of people that have that opportunity, people that want to be investors. Again, everyone wants to be, right? It's awesome. Everyone wants to be financially free. We all know that real estate is a great path to do it. So just have those conversations with people. You'd be so shocked how many people, if you just say, hey, have you ever thought about getting into real estate investing? They're going to say yes, right? And maybe they didn't know that you were an agent that knew much about investment properties, right? Because those are two very distinct things. I have clients that I am their investment real estate agent, but they have a regular real estate agent for their residential stuff. And I do residential as well, of course. But my conversations with them is, if we're speaking about investing, they say, oh, I do have another agent that helped me buy my home 2 years ago. And I'll just have a conversation. Okay, fantastic. If you've ever thought about getting into real estate investing, most of my clients are real estate investors. So if you want to learn more about what that takes to become an investor and what makes a good deal, I'm happy to have that conversation with you, right? This sort of ties into the like lack of loyalty thing in the investment world. But, moving forward, they say, okay, well, I'll work with Jake on the investments and I'll work with Billy on my regular home. But here's the thing, investors buy usually at least one deal a year. How often do you buy a new home? Every 5, 7, 10 years, right? Depending on the market. So there's massive opportunities, instead of just saying, oh, they have an agent. Well, do they have an investment agent? Do I know investment properties? Can I help them out? It's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with as far as advice, tips, tricks, or just closing thoughts?
So I believe that in business, niching down is the key to success. I niched down in my business because I had the skill set and I had this experience. It made sense for me to do the niche of working with investors. But I niche down even further because I work with so many short-term rental Airbnb clients. So I believe that niching down your business is very, very important. And the interesting thing about niching is that it doesn't mean that you can't work with clients outside of your niche. That's not the case one bit. It could be, so I have friends who were in the military. So if you're in the military and you're now an agent, I think that it's an awesome niche opportunity to work with veterans. I have one friend who's an agent, but he went to law school. There's an amazing niche right there, right? Because there's a ton of lawyers in Nashville. They probably like to work with someone that is in their space and knows, their lingo and how their brains work. So my niche is investment properties. I think it's a great niche because of all the opportunities, but I think that overall niching down your business is really, really important to, explode everything and become the person that people think of when they think about that niche.
Okay, cool. Well, awesome, Jake. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some insight on how to become a investor agent and focusing on clients that you can help out anytime throughout the year and sometimes multiple times a year, which is good. That's a good, what they call it, job security, right? So something to keep in mind. And clearly, turning over business started in 2021 as an agent. First deal, right? February of 2021, you said, and
That's right.
Already knocking out double digits, selling homes. So moving quickly, and there you go. Just need to get out, talk to some people, find some deals. And are you making any content right now on YouTube about this stuff?
None on YouTube. No. I'm active on Instagram and a little bit on TikTok, but no YouTube yet.
Just check it out. Could be a good option for you. So, all right, Jake. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Appreciate your time, Levi. Thank you.